Well, that's fine. We're good looking as is.
Wow,
We're
should have done a
live.
thumbnail. We forgot to do it because we were so busy talking to each other.
That's what it was.
So, what we're a little. We need to turn the
Cattywampus is what I like to call it.
Yeah, turn it towards you a little bit. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that should do it. Yeah. See, this way we can both be in the screen, but we don't have to actually be close to each other.
I wanted to hold your hand. We got
James Elliott, Fubar, what's happening? Joe K, Abel D, Pentastar, Fritz Caddy, what's happening, guys? Jason Fitch, Pentastar, Joshua, look, he's alive.
I am alive. I've surpassed the regular guys, and now I'm on to the what do you call it? Superhero legend kind of stuff.
Yes. Well, you've been immortalized.
That's it.
The mighty Rona took its best shot at you.
I did a good fucking job too.
You sent it sniveling back to its viral.
I did. It actually was really kicking my ass till it got to my lungs, and it was like, oh, I can't handle this.
When I had it, seriously, right? I was just telling him it was the best thing that ever happened to me after it was all said and done, right? Because you almost kill. I was like, forget about it. Like this was like 6 weeks of like just total misery, walking pneumonia, just horrible, right? But I coughed for like 3 weeks straight, day and night and day. Nothing fixed it, right? It was just this crazy cough. Then after about 3 weeks of coughing, something came up.
We're gonna call it I'm thinking like a lung shingle.
Yeah, a lung shingle, whatever it was. Something came up, and then suddenly I felt like a new man. It was like I had never smoked. So I've actually since I had the Rona, I literally have never felt better. So,
well, I haven't smoked in 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. I felt so terrible. I couldn't smoke when I was no. I could not. I'm telling you, I could not do anything. I had 104, 105 fever for 4 or 5 days. I was miserable. I was just like, I thought I was dead. Like, I thought I'm like, all right, this is the end.
Uncle Kathy saying you're alive.
Yeah, yep,
she's
welcoming
you back. Alive. John Warburn is saying that non-dead Dallas. It's nice when he's not dead, right?
I like not being dead. I mean, that's my favorite part about being alive.
So what's going on, everybody? What kind of day we have here? Oh, the Fubar just put up like to the AHRA. So I guess the AHRA still exists because
it does. It didn't get killed off by coronavirus either. Not yet.
I was getting ready to sell your trinkets, like your Wally, but I mean,
Yeah, I can totally see it. You got to make the rent somehow.
Hey, it's a hard life. So sometimes you have to sell off your dead buddy stuff. I mean, it's just the way it goes.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
I was going to keep Big Blue.
We got the best group here. I mean, everybody's like, welcome back. Thank God you're alive.
Joe K thinks he got snuffed by Big Oil.
Well, I got snuffed by Little Oil, actually. Gave me the coronavirus.
Well, Pardon is welcoming you back.
Yeah, I immediately, as I started feeling better, got kicked off Facebook for a few days because I went on there and said, I beat the biological attack from the Chinese. Oh, that cut my account off immediately.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the age of censorship. It's there you go, right?
Oh, yeah. Kentucky Mopar says they're getting 5 inches of snow. We got 9 inches of snow out there in Las Casas the other day.
I'm going to tell the truth. I played the other morning. I went outside. Right, I was gonna come to the shop, and I opened it. I had driven home in the snow the night before, and it was like a whiteout, right?
Right.
I opened the door to step out, and I saw snow on the door handle of my car, and I was like, "No,
I'm done today.
I'm done. I'm not going to touch the snow on the." That's how allergic I am to snow at this point in my life.
Oh, well, my wife and kids, my kids, you want to know the weirdest crap about this whole thing? My kids were the first ones to have it, and I didn't know. My daughter had like a stomach ache, and then my son had pink eye. You remember I said, hey, he's got pink eye.
Yeah.
The next day, my wife is like, gets sent home from work. Oh, they said they think I might be really sick. And I'm like, okay, well, she said, you think we should go get tested for the coronavirus? I'm like, no, what's the point? We got it. You got it, right? So you just spend a bunch of money to find out you got it. So we just stayed home. Well, she started to get to the point where she couldn't even breathe. She just kept coughing, right? And I'm like, oh, shit, this is not good. So I piled her in the car, hauled her to the hospital. And they said, "Oh yeah, you both got coronavirus and pneumonia." And when I walked in the door, the lady says, "Are you okay, sir?" I'm like,
No.
"That's why I'm at the hospital."
What do you think, sweetheart? You know what I mean? So somebody just said that they kicked their ass for Penta started only kicked my ass for 4 weeks. It was 6 weeks for me.
Yeah, I was really getting my ass beat for about 3 weeks. It was pretty bad.
Code improvements, the crud, that's what they used to call it. No, man,
this is
was
different.
not the crud. Yeah,
I've
I
had
have
the
the
crud.
crud. And I thought it was the crud when it first got started, but no. Once you get deep into the Rona zone, it's like what it is, it's the flu. No matter you call it whatever you want, it's the flu. But it's like the super flu.
I'll tell you what I think it
end all
is.
flus.
I think it really is just simple as the flu. But what it does is it screws up your lung function to where you can't get enough oxygen in your blood, right? So then you start getting like delirious and you can't think straight. You like literally standing up is a job.
I could not walk a straight line. I had vertigo. I got vertigo normally, right? I could not walk a straight line from like just across, just to get off my couch and walk into the kitchen. I couldn't do it.
And you're like winded, right?
Yeah,
that's how I was.
I had Kathy driving me around.
I was so winded. I mean, worn out. Like you had just got done doing something extremely difficult, and all you did was like walk another room to take a leak.
But I'm going to tell you, after all of that coughing, I was like, I felt like a new man. I
never really had the cough. But man, was I hadn't been that sick in a long time. Now I know that we had COVID back in November of 19 because it was weird. It was like I got sick and I hadn't been that sick in like 20 years. And I told Julie, I said, man, I really, really was sick this go round. Well, then the following week, they're like, oh, COVID-19 is all over the world now. Everyone's going to die. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that was the crap I already had. Because, I mean, it had me down for a couple of weeks. But, yeah, and I'll tell you what's weird about it. I found out you take a lot of vitamins. You take vitamin C. You do like a vitamin C drink.
Right.
Zinc.
Well, watch out now. You could get us banned.
No, I'm just talking about vitamins. Take vitamins, human beings. Take them. All right.
Yeah.
They're good for you.
They don't care about that. You actually could get us.
I felt a lot better after just taking the vitamins. You feel really good. Like
no, you almost died because you took vitamins. No, yeah.
That's what it was. I needed some kind of freaking pharmaceutical.
There are no alternatives. Get that out of your mind. There are no alternatives. All right. So let's talk about stuff here. Yes. Hey, Hill, yo from Cleveland. Can't wait for the bike channel. I can't wait for the bike channel either. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see.
If you watch my last video, I'm like, I think I'm done for the day. I really feel like shit. Like the next 2 weeks, I'm dead.
Mako Shark, what's happening? Let's see. Viter Alexander Risvold. Hi, Tony. I'm upgrading my 360 and my W150 truck. Ported J heads, Edelbrock air gap intake. What camshaft would you recommend? Thank you from Norway. Vidar.
What's a W150? That's the 4-wheel drive?
No, it's just a regular 150. What camshaft would I recommend?
That's a Hughes Whiplash, wouldn't you?
It really depends on what he's going to use it for. Yeah, the Hughes Whiplash is a great cam. It really depends on what you're going to use it for. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I tell everybody else. I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell everybody else. It's about cam recommendations. You need to get on the horn with a cam manufacturer. They all have helplines, and you need to give them every single detail of your truck. From tire size, gear ratio, converter, or is it a stick?
Intended use. That's the big
intended use. What kind of exhaust is on this thing? There's so many factors, and there are so many varieties of cams. If for me to just spit something out off the top of my head, I'm not doing any service.
The W150 is the 4x4 Power Wagon.
Power Wagon. Okay.
So you're wanting good low end and mid range. Low end and mid range, I think, would be the ideal thing for that, right? With ported J heads.
But again, it's what's the weight of this thing? What's
They're
the
pretty
gearing
heavy,
on it? Yeah, it's like, and what is the intended purpose?
A purple cam. There you go.
Yes, a purple cam. Let's see. Matt asks, Tony, a Magnum hit 273, you're going to build would be a good fuel economy build. It will be. It will be. We're gonna ease into that. First, we have to work on the stuff we've already got on the. Let's see. Pirate Labs. I use purple shaft cams on my 70s, 440s. All Chrysler direct, all of the direct connection cams were painted purple. So by saying I have a purple cam means absolutely nothing. They were all painted purple.
I'm assuming this is supposed to say can. So IYIZ Jules Isley says, can you sleeve an engine with removing the total block, 383 small block? You can sleeve any engine almost, as long as it has enough meat left in the cylinder to hold the sleeve.
Well, remember, every time you cut for a sleeve, you're taking deck strength away. You know, because okay, so the cylinder head's bolted to the deck, and the deck is held to the rest of the block through the cylinder bores. So when you sleeve a block, the sleeve doesn't take any of the stress from the cylinder head, just the metal that's left. And every time you open up a cylinder bore big enough to drop a sleeve into, you're removing the strength that's holding the deck solid. You're reducing the overall rigidity of the block. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about sleeving something.
So Mikey K133 asks, either of you have any experience with Pontiac engines? Doing a cam on my dad's 67 GTO with a 428 turbo 400, thinking of doing a roller cam in it.
I would do a roller.
Yeah, with the way today's going, if you can get a decent roller lifter for it, I would. And you're in the same situation as me with the Buicks, is like that. Roller lifters don't fly out the door for a Buick, you know, just like Pontiac, I'm sure. So you probably have like a stockpile of decent lifters on the shelf still, right? If we had a Chevrolet, you'd be kind of sucking, you know. And if it was a solid roller Buick, I'd be using a Chevrolet solid roller. I don't know how it is for Pontiac.
Well, the Buick uses the same diameter as a Chevy, right?
It is for if you're using a solid. It's actually the same lifter.
Okay.
But if you're using like a hydraulic, it's its own thing. And I think it's where the band sits on there.
Yeah, but you could. There's just a matter of using different. Oh, I know. I understand what you're saying. Okay. Pilot Labs. I use purple shift cams in 7440s, 3 of them.
Yeah. Hit the arrow there. There we go.
Wait. Before it was named Pirate Labs, it was named the Purple Shift. No Pirate Labs. They were all purple shafts. There were like 8 or 10 different grinds for the small block, 8 or 10 different grinds for the big block. There were like, I don't remember how many for the Hemi. They were all purple shafts, but they all had different part numbers. So no, there's no such thing as a purple shaft. They were all purple shafts. You had a specific one. I don't know which one you had. Oh, pardon. Thank you, brother. UT, the $76 Chinese copy card of BBD carb you recommended works like a charm. Excellent. Installed on the 72 Carnet yesterday. Works great. Thanks. And thank you.
You know what? That was something that we hadn't.
What was that?
Coda improvements. Guys, on your paint weighing experiment, you can measure the weight of paint by determining the percent of solids. We were actually just going to do it as about as simple as you get, right? Strip a fender, paint it, and weigh it the entire time. So that's kind of what happened. We weren't going to go over the top.
Okay. Pick one.
Well, okay. Hershers Velasquez, my 65 C10 350 small block Chevy was running a week ago. Tried to drive it today, and now there's no spark. Replace voltage regulator, ignition coil, new spark plug wires, new distributor. Help, please. Okay, yes. First things first. Stop throwing parts at it.
Yeah.
Right?
The parts cannon.
Yeah. Most likely, with the rash of problems with the rubbing blocks on the points that Tony was having, I'm assuming it's probably no different from a Chevrolet. And what it sounds like is that you have a point system, right?
Voltage regulator. You put a new distributor in it too. Oh, 65 C10 350 small Chevy. Running ignition go. Try to drive it to the then there's no spark. Replace voltage regulator, ignition coil. All right, so try this. Do this. Oh, geez. I can't think.
Herschler's.
Do this, right? Put the ignition in on position, okay, and then trip out the starter. right? So start it by shorting out by jumping the two posts on the starter to get it cranking, right? But do it with the key in the on position, because I have a funny feeling your ignition switch went bad. The start position isn't sending juice to the coil. So
Right.
yeah, so
Because
try.
that's going to eliminate both sides of that. If it's a point setup, it's going to eliminate both sides of that starter. So the 12 volts and the 9 volts. So when it's in the start and the run, right?
Yeah, well, even if it's electronic,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's still getting two.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, do that. Put the key in the on position and then crank the engine by tripping out the starter. And if it starts, it's your ignition switch.
The Whitetail Rancher says, I freaking ruined my new AHRA shirt today.
Oh
Super
my
down
God.
about it.
What'd you do, man?
Well, shoot me an email, man. I'll sell you one cheap. We're on sale. And you can't use them for certain things like, I don't know, hauling bleach. Hauling bleach is not good in your new shirt.
Paul Shea is saying check power at the coil. Well, here's the thing. If you're checking power at the coil, you're checking it. I'm assuming he's working by himself. You're going to put the key in the on position and you're going to check and you're going to get voltage at the coil. But now you're going to go crank it. And when you crank it,
nothing.
then you get nothing and you would never know that. So just put it in the on position and give it a whirl and see if she goes.
Somebody was saying I had a 200 mile an hour or 200 miles per gallon quadrojet. No, I was actually happy. I've been playing with it. And you guys have probably seen some of it. I got I would say it's probably in the 10 to 12 mile a gallon range now. So I'm getting pretty close. But I think it could go down a jet size or up a metering rod size.
Mike Fredericks, your old Street Racer 70 GTX. What happened to it? What old Street Racer 70 GTX?
Is that the Hemi one that was here?
No. Are you talking about the one that we did over here? No, that was a 67. That was a 70. I'm not sure which car he's talking about. Your old Street Racer 70 GTX, what happened to it? I have no idea which car he's talking about.
Did you ever have a 70 GTX?
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of what a 70 looks like.
One.
What does a 70 look like?
It's actually the exact cross between a 69 and a 71. It's a 1 year only body.
Is it the double round surround headlight?
Yeah,
deal?
it's got the loop,
kind of like a Super B.
But the bumper is straight, but it has a loop in the grill.
Okay. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay, gotcha. I know what you're talking about. And I
have no idea what car he's talking about.
So it's like the Super B has its own weird headlight in 70 only.
Well, that's okay. So we're doing a video tomorrow that's like kind of different than what we've usually been doing, and we talk about the 70 car in it.
The 70s are good. Magnante just did a video on it not too long ago.
Hi, Mr. Will. Uncle Kathy saying, LOL, the green GTX, the green GTX. What? Green GTX? Am I living in an alternative, reality? Oh, God. Cat? I did some MAG articles on. Oh! I know the car you're talking about. I know your car. The green 70 GTX, Fountain Avenue and all of that. Oh, God. Holy cow, you drove it every day. Yeah, okay. Kathy drove it every day. That's right. Man,
maybe you still got the Rona.
I may still have the car. I don't know what happened to it. I had that thing had a crazy clutch in it. And Kathy, at the time, weighed like 42 pounds. You know, she was like,
she's in there like,
she used to have to drive the car. It had this big giant pistol grip. And it had this crazy freaking hammy clutch in it. And she would have to go like this and manual steering and manual brakes. But she muscled it along. Jeez. Okay. I forgot all about that car.
The green GTX with the acid.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I got so many freaking things in my head. So Kathy, what happened to that car? You remember what happened to that car? Hemi Head 68. Tony, how did the Boss 429 fare against the mighty 426 Hemi?
Oh, no.
Well,
on the street? I guess they were both not known for being street machine motors, are they? They were both kind of weak on the street, but on the track, they were killers.
Well, the way I look at it is look around the landscape of the world, right? And how many active Boss 429s do you see out there? How many active 426 Hemis do you see out there?
Not many.
What do you mean, how many? How many Boss 429s are competing in any of the drag racing series? Or
Oh, no, very
like
few. Yeah,
or just John KZ built ones that are, the 800 cubic inches, stuff like that. But as opposed to 426 Hemis.
Oh, there's a zillion in the drag strip.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, like, on the street, those engines were kind of notorious for being like not the monster that you expected on the street.
No.
Right. And when they went to the track, yeah, you could get them to run good, but man, on the street, they just were not there.
Kathy's saying, I don't know. I think you blew the tranny again in it, and we were broke, so you sold it. I have one of the GTX emblems from it. That's right. Yeah, Mr. I told you about it on Sunday racing. I couldn't picture it. I just couldn't picture the car. But yes, and it was in Cars Illustrated. He's talking about the car that was in Cars Illustrated magazine. It was actually it was in two of them. It was in Muscle Car magazine. A couple of articles. It was before I actually started doing magazines. It was a magazine story that was done about me. And then I started doing magazines, and I still had that car at that point. And Kathy was also using it as her daily driver.
Abel D says, Tony, has Andy called you for warranty on the 426 Hemi engine?
He wants to build something else. He messaged Kathy the other day. I don't answer messages, so I don't know. He could have sent me a message. I have no idea. But he messaged Kathy recently the other day about wanting to do another one. So I don't know.
Another Hemi?
Another something. I have no idea. Kat, what did Andy say he wants to build?
At what point would a stall converter be needed? That's Mikey K133. Or is that a better question for the cam manufacturer?
It's yeah. No. See, how much of a converter do you need?
Then that's where do you want to draw the line?
Right.
Are you running power brakes? Because if you're running power brakes, that's the defining number right there, is probably like 12 to 13 inches of vacuum. Anything below that, it really won't run your power brakes.
So you're saying a looser converter to get the RPM up?
Yeah, so it's not dragging in gear.
Okay.
But I was always really conservative. If something I was wanting to drive on the street, I was always like the 2500 guy. 2500 was like the magic number. You could almost live with the most raunchiest camshaft with too much carburetor and 2500 RPM stall. But if you ever over convert a car, it's almost as detrimental as under converting a car.
Yeah, that's the truth, because you're throwing away a bunch. How high an RPM range are you moving the power curve of the engine? That's the. Okay, Kathy says Andy is going to do. She wants to do a charger, and he wants to put the other Hemi in it. So I don't know what's going to become of that. Need metal. What's happening, man?
The other Hemi? Did he get a whole other motor?
Yeah. He wants to build the one that came out of the GTX and put it in a charger.
Oh man, I hold on to that sucker.
Metal.
Wait, none of them were numbers matching crap, huh?
Those little Buells were built into dirt trackers. I raced against a few. They were making 50 horse. Check it out. Yeah, I've seen that. I know. I don't know the details of what they do to get that kind of power out of them. But Austin has an idea that he wants to do with that bike, so I think we're just going to fix it.
What's that, the glass? Oh, what the hell is going on there?
What happened with that thing is that I started the burnout in first gear, okay, and then I upshifted. You could hear where I power shifted the bike in the middle of the burnout. You hear the RPM come down, but I guess it wasn't completely engaged or something. So it went, but then after that, that's it. Nobody home. It's like all neutrals anywhere you put the shifter.
Oh, well, that sounds like it might be the clutch, huh?
No. The clutch is fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Douglas Fowler, 75 likes. Oh, no, we only have. Please hit the like icon, helps the channel. Thank you. I do appreciate that. The likes do help us. Even dislikes. If you're so inclined, you can give us a thumbs down. It's all right. It doesn't make any difference. Like or dislike, it helps the algorithm.
Or hit the middle finger button.
Yeah, right. Draw in your own icon and hit it. You know what I mean? It's great. It's all good.
Okay. Hemi Head 68 says, are some model year 727 torque flights better than others?
Yes, but detail-wise, obviously there's the heavy-duty versions, the truck versions, the Hemi versions. That's the guy you want to ask about torque flights through the years, the range of torque flights and the difference. Well, first of all, John Wilbur knows a lot about those transmissions, but you can go to John Cope has a website, and he'll list all of the differences in the various years.
So Abel D's asking, Dallas, are the Buick V8 your fan engines to build? I'm assuming like my favorite engines to build. It's just the only engines that I have a plethora of, right? Like I would have to say my favorite engine to build is probably small block Fords. I really like small block Fords, especially like the Windsor variety. But I do like the Buicks because there is a essence of real hot rodding in them, because no one makes any freaking parts. So you got to make all your own stuff. And it's like, if you look back at the 50s and 60s when the whole thing kicked off, that's kind of what everybody did, but they made their own stuff. So that's I get a kick out of that.
Travis Hall, my wife is watching. Can you say hi to Michelle? Michelle, how?
Hi. Michelle. Hi, Michelle. What's wrong?
Thumbs up for Michelle. Okay. Let's see. 351 Windsor. Michael Moore, what was the first Hemi car you ever saw? First Hemi car I ever saw.
Top Fuel Dragster for me. That was probably the very first one I saw.
I was on vacation with my family in Pennsylvania. I was about 10 years old, and there was a Hemi Cuda in the parking lot next to us. And back then it was just a car. It was a regular car. That was probably the first Hemi car I ever saw. Chaos
Customs is asking, is the Buick 307 from 85 worth building? Well, one, that's not a Buick 307. That's an Oldsmobile 307. And it's an 85 Buick Riviera. The best thing to do with that 307, it depends what you're wanting to do. They can get decent mileage and perform fairly decent. Some of them came with a roller cam, like in 86 and 7, I believe, but I don't know about 85. But the good thing about Oldsmobile small block is virtually any other Oldsmobile small block and big block will almost bolt in its place. So you'd have your choice. The best thing to do is probably find a 403. But if it's in an 85 front-wheel drive Riviera, look for a tranny too, because the 403 will munch on that. What is in that thing? That's not even a 425. It's like it'd be like the 204R version of that.
Yeah.
Which is probably just not very strong.
Well, they're good driver transmissions. They don't take any power.
Yeah. I'd leave the 307 in just so you don't have to change anything. And then I'd play with the 307 and take the computer-controlled carburetor off and put a earlier model quadrijet on it and play with the distributor. You can get quite a bit out of them. I had one in the 87 Cutlets, and it got really decent mileage.
I used Jules Isley. Clutch pedal too high in a 55 210, and the spring is hard. How do we fix it? The spring is hard. There's an over-center spring that would actually help pull it down.
It sounds like they got the.
Sounds like you got a ratio issue.
Oh, and that could be it too. Like you got the wrong pedal in it or something.
Well, I'd say the pedal might be right, but the Z-bar is going to be wrong. You've got a ratio issue. You've got so I can't picture the exact Z-bar that you would have on that car, but the lever that goes, so you've got the clutch pedal and then you got the clutch rod and it goes to the Z-bar and it does this. Well, odds are you've got either the wrong Z-bar, the ratio is wrong.
Or it's in the wrong hole.
It could be in the wrong, I don't know, but you have a ratio problem is what you have. Now, I can't tell you how to fix it because that's specific to the car. But your problem is in the ratio.
VCMD Propulsion says, I'm prototyping a cam that splits the firing order to have 2 power strokes at the same time, basically like 2 4-cylinder engines. But I think all V8s run like that, don't they?
2 power strokes.
No. 1 and 6 are at the top at the same time. Are they on power stroke?
No,
one's on power, one's on exhaust.
Right. Geez. I don't know, VCMD. You're prototyping a cam that splits the firing order to have 2.
Isn't there going to be a huge overlap though, where there is nothing firing?
Yeah, like 2 4-cylinder.
It's probably going to be a way
out. That's a flat plane.
Flat plane setup.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, instead of changing the crank, all you're doing is changing the cam profile.
Yeah, but I don't know how you would get that to happen. Well, I have to. Well, it's 1 in 6 on a 18436.572 motor. I don't know what it would be on a alternate firing order like a Ford or like an LS.
Ford would be 3 and 5.
Bad Tree Productions is in the house. What's happening, brother man?
So I talked to John Wilburn today.
Did you?
Yeah, and we're gonna go ahead with our YouTube content creators race here. Well, it's not even a race. What would you call it? A get together? I don't know what you would call it. It's like a fun event. I guess is the whole.
That's the one you're doing in Sikeston, Missouri.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. August 26th and 27th.
Yes. So John Wilburn and Dallas and AHRA are putting on an event.
August 26th and 27th in Sikeston, Missouri. We actually haven't nailed down a name yet because I was sick for so long, but I started thinking maybe the race with no name is a good name. You know, I've never seen anybody do that. And it's not really a race. It's like a get-together fun kind of event. It's going to have content creators competing against each other.
UTG, did you ever own a diesel bike?
I don't know if they ever made one, did they?
They did. I couldn't even tell you. I know that they exist. I think Rokon built one.
Oh. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I know they exist, but I have no idea who made them or where or even why, really.
Dallas, do you know about a late 60s 455 orange block? A Buick? Dan Edwards, that's a Buick, you mean? Because I can't think of. All the Buicks at that time are red.
Yeah, I've never seen an orange Buick. John Wilburn saying that Dallas and I will be live 1/11 at 7 p.m. Central to give all the details.
Yeah.
On your channel, John?
Yeah, we're going to do it on John's channel.
So, yes. So, tune into John's channel on January 11th and at 7 o'clock. And you'll have all of the details on this incredible event that they're putting on. This one-of-a-kind world.
That's what's making it so hard about putting a name on it, because you can't call it the Nationals or the Drags, because people are going to automatically think drag racing, right?
It's beyond that.
It's different than that. Yeah, it's meant to be fun. We're going to have car show. It's going to have an actual fun class that just about anybody can compete in with. Well, you saw it already. The mini bike deal.
Yeah,
the mini bike deal. So we're going to give you all the details on it.
Guys, who out there knows? Now he's got my wheels turning now. Who out there knows of a diesel motorcycle?
Oh, you know what? I was going to ask you about that. So Dan Edwards would say, sorry, Dallas, an Olds block. Yeah, that wasn't there a 455 Olds that was in like the 98s and stuff that came in the
that was orange.
It was in the Hearst Olds, right?
Yeah, okay. So I don't know.
69 was the only year you could get a Hearst Olds 455 because it was a limited production deal. Right? They left the factory as 400 small blocks or 400s Oldsmobiles, and then ended up as a 455.
Well, they were gold up until that time, and then there was a red one.
Oh,
or an orange one, I should say. It was an orange one. Oh God, see,
Olds to me is like. And my father was really into them. I was not. God, they have enormous ports on them, like a Cleveland. I don't know how they didn't run so damn good.
You think Polaris had a diesel ATV?
So I was going to ask you about something. I watched your New Year's Eve live about 2 days late because I was dying.
You were nearly dead.
Right. So as I was being resurrected, I watched your New Year's Eve live.
Yes.
Right. And it was time delayed by 48 hours. And you were like, everybody was trying to stump you, right?
Okay.
Stump you about drag racing stuff. And I have one that I learned just the other day that I had never heard of before. Okay.
Hit me with it.
You know EJ Potter?
Yes.
What was the name of his motorcycle?
The Widowmaker.
Well, okay. There is a Widowmaker. There's also another one, too. The Bloody Mary.
The Bloody Mary.
I never knew that. I never knew that.
There were two, right? Yeah, you're right. The Widowmaker is the one that he actually, the Bloody Mary was the first one.
Mhm.
And then the Widowmaker is the one that he actually made a name with.
For the whole, burning the tire off on way down the track deal. But yeah, the Bloody Mary, I thought that was interesting because I'd always heard of the Widowmaker.
Ooh, the Enfield is nice. The Enfield is making some beautiful bikes, right? All of a sudden, out of the blue, right?
The retro bikes?
You going to get one?
I haven't seen one. I really wanted a retro bike like about 10 years ago. And the one I really wanted is one that like nobody wanted. It was a retro bike by, what's this, Ducati GT1000? Is that such a thing?
I don't know. I can't.
Oh my God, it was gorgeous. It had the 1,000cc like motor that you get on the Monster,
right?
But on a retro looking bike, and it was like, wow.
Yeah, Ducati built something like that now, but I'm not. I don't know what it's called. Gabriel DeMarco, thank you, sir. Tony Dallas, which would have the advantage in pressurizing the intake manifold more, ram air or cowl induction? Both air cooler, but what about pressure?
I would have. Cowl induction is in an ideal spot on the car, high pressure spot.
Yeah, ram air. Okay, what the things I did a whole video on this. The things that are labeled ram air are not actually ram air.
Right, you would need it actually coming from like behind the grill.
Right. So like the Oldsmobile setup where they had the ducts under the front bumper, that is probably as effective as cowl. Okay. But like the lower scoops that are labeled like ram air, like the ones used on a Pontiac, or these on the Mopars, are not really ram air. They just kind of
cold air intake.
Right? Yeah. You would need to get above the boundary layer, which is going to be between 1 inch and 2 inches, depending on the speed in the front and the profile of the front of the car. You have to get above the boundary layer to get an actual ram air effect, and that's where snorkel scoops come from. That's why a snorkel scoop has that whole area. And
it's like down, 6 inches higher.
Right. And then the snorkel sticks out. That's a ram air. That's a true ram air. But like the air grabber, the shakers, all that stuff, no, there's no ram air effect there really at all.
Yeah, if it was true ram air, it probably would be almost equivalent as a cowl induction. But a cowl induction is at the highest pressure point of the car. It's not the highest. The highest would be like the grill area, right? Or the front bumper.
Well, you got air. Okay, as you're going, right, the air piles makes like a little bubble around the front of the car, almost like the same, like if you picture like a Daytona Superbird nose. But what happens is, the air comes over the hood of the car, right? And I picture this now, right? So here's your hood, here's your windshield, here's your roof. Okay, so the air comes. And here's the actual surface of the hood. The air comes over the surface of the hood on the boundary layer. It hits the windshield. When it hits the windshield, it splits, right? So what happens is it starts to tumble, and half of it goes down, and the half of it that goes down is pointing right at the cowl, and that's why all of the vents for your fresh air system inside the car, or the HVAC inside the car.
That's why it's all fed from there,
right? And then the other half of it goes up and over the roof of the car. So basically, it's the boundary layer hitting the middle of the windshield, and then it's splitting and going in two different directions.
If you ever wanted to feel that effect for real, go out and drive the car, and then essentially don't turn the fan on or anything, and it'll still blow cool air out the bottom of the vents.
Right. And if you want to see what the boundary layer is about, just drive the car wet. Wet the hood of the car and get it up to like 50, 60 miles an hour and watch the water that's sitting on the hood. and sometimes it doesn't even come backwards. Sometimes it goes forward. It just depends on, because the boundary layer, there's all kinds of weird things depending on the profile of the car and the speed. And
I like the way they used to do this in the 60s and the 50s, is where they used to take yarn all over the whole car. And then you could literally watch it. You could stand off to the side and watch the car go by and see what's happening.
Mark M., thank you for the super chat, Mark. I'm in my mid-20s and grew up with the stigma of carbs as unreliable and bad fuel economy. Because of how well you've explained their function, I will switch over. Every new car is connected to the internet and can be hacked. That's the truth.
Yeah. Now, if you go with a carbureted car, there's no hacking there.
Listen, Mark, you may find a troublesome learning curve because it's not commonplace anymore. There aren't really people you can like just buzz up for questions real quick the way you could, years ago.
Hit up your grandpa.
Yeah, hit up your grandpa, right? you may end up going to a steep learning curve, but once you learn the carburetor, once you master the carburetor, you will never go back to fuel injection. I will guarantee that.
I'll tell you something that totally blows all that out of the water. Okay. A carburetor, matter of fact, if you start looking at stuff from like the mid to late 70s, that was the perfection of the carburetor. They had 50 years of development, or actually longer than that. It was like almost 100 years of development of carburetors before you got to that point. So you're looking at the perfection of the carburetor from about the mid 70s on to like early 80s. After that, it started getting really smoggy, but great carburetors. They're great carburetors from that time frame. And it doesn't matter which one you get. You can even go, I'll tell you what, Ford had the audacity to build the variable Venturi carburetor. If you can figure that sucker out, oh man, they're actually a really good carburetor. But God, are they? Just stay away from them. Go with something simple and easy. But man, those are the ones I always wanted to master because they just seem so complicated.
Joe Mama says UTG, that's bullshit on carbs not going back to 5. I don't know what you mean by 5. I guess fuel injection, I guess you're talking about. Okay, Gabriel DeMarco. So a hood scoop, which is above the boundary layer, should have an advantage over cowl induction.
Oh, yeah.
I would think so.
I'll guarantee it. You know why? Go back and look at Pro Stock from the early 70s. Nobody had a cowl induction scoop. Nobody. They all had forward-facing scoops. And I'm not saying that those guys, were perfect, but they took the time to research and develop it, right? You're looking for 1 horsepower over the other guy. If nobody had a rear-facing cowl induction scoop. Let's see. Well, that was a weird question. Otto 1303 says Dallas and Tony, are any parts interchangeable between GM big blocks with same displacement, or are they different monsters altogether? Completely different. Yeah.
You got the 455 Olds, 455 Buick, 455 Pontiac. No, they don't even resemble each other.
Well, I think the only part I can think of that is interchangeable between some of them is like lifters. That's literally it. That's like there's nothing else.
You may find stuff like that.
Your distributor cap. The carburetor. A lot of the carburetors are very similar, so they can be changed around, but the calibration is completely different.
How good are NACA inlets? You know something? I have never really gotten involved with. We had. I tell you, we had. Let's see, this is getting into some like really off the wall stuff. But when we were running a Top Fueler, I was partners on a Top Fuel car, and there are weird things that happen under the car. Like, and I discovered this one time. We had a fuel tank leaking, right? So when I was under the car, we had the car up, I was servicing it, and I was trying to figure out what to do with this leaking fuel tank. I noticed that all of the fuel had streaked forward, right? So in other words, you would think now at 270, 280 miles an hour that the fuel would want to go back, right? So the fuel tank's in the middle of the car, so the fuel tank's in front of the driver's feet, right? And you would think that if it's leaking, you would have fuels, the nitro would stain going backwards, but it wasn't like that at all. It was the leak was from the stain marks were from the fuel tank forward to the front axle. So evidently this was a common thing. Like the air was weird under the car. And at about that time, at about that speed, this is before the cars were routinely hitting 300 miles an hour. But at about that speed, there were weird things happening with body panels and so on and so forth. And they started installing those NACA ducts. And we got a pair of NACA ducts, and I forgot who. It might have been Mike Majira, who was an aerodynamicist. He used to do the wings and stuff. And he told us, put these things on the side, and he gave us the position in relation to the front wheel. He said, and he put these things on the side, and that's going to solve all your aerodynamic weirdnesses in the car. And we did. So we put these 2 NACA ducts in there, and it changed everything. Like we used to have like the body panels would kind of like bend around the Zeus fasteners at the front part of the car. And after we put those ducts in there, that stopped happening. So I don't know how NACA ducts work in terms of delivering air to an engine, like let's say on an AAR CUDA, or they used them on
like side vents, right? That was a side vents, like Mustang side.
Well,
vents.
they used them on the GT500s, the Mustangs.
Oh,
okay,
yeah, I know which ones you're talking about. Then, yeah.
I have no idea how effective they are in terms of getting air into an engine, but I could tell you for sure they definitely clean up. They will clean up the aerodynamics of something going,
it wouldn't that. Ironically, the same kind of duct that they use on the Daytonas, where they face them backwards, getting the air out from under the car, under the nose.
Ones? Oh, you mean on the front fenders?
On the front fenders, yeah. They were backwards facing though.
Yes.
And it was allowing the air to come out from under the car up over it.
Well, they're facing back. That wasn't an aqueduct. That was a backwards facing scoop, which would automatically cause a vacuum.
Right, which would pull
hot air out from under that and help keep the front brakes cool and the front tires cool. Paul Shea, didn't you wax the bottom of your Mustang to improve wind drag? Every molecule of that car was polished. Like, Kathy's still on here. She'd been being a witness. I used to, every Saturday, whether it needed or not, Saturday morning before I did anything else with the car, it got washed, it got waxed. It got put up for 4 jack stands, and I would get underneath the car and I would wash and wax the bottom of the car, including the exhaust. And when I got rid of that car, the exhaust literally shined like the top of the car. And it wasn't because I was a detail perfectionist, but I was like, any air that touches this car is not going to find a rough surface to grab onto. And so, and I was a fanatic about it. I haven't been that way since. That was the only car that I was like that with, but.
Well, that's the one you were kind of leading the pack on, though. Right?
I was leading the pack with that one. I was the first. I was a barrier smasher with that car.
I would have loved to have been there. I was trying to do that with my T-Bird, but it was like, we had a big group on, it was before Facebook and all that. It used to have the online forums, and I was in it hard, like trying to have the fastest T-Bird on the forum. And I realized it just took a lot of money and I didn't have it. And I did spray it like a lot. Like I broke 2 of them 5-liter blocks, spraying the crap out of it.
And Fubar just put the link to the AHRA, and you guys, you want to belong to the AHRA.
I know. I didn't go there. I mean, you might be able to just hit the link up at the top and go over to our eBay page and buy some stuff from eBay, or you can buy a membership. Yeah, I'm right now in the process of writing the 2022 rule book and getting the schedules all ironed out. So here pretty soon, all that stuff will be coming out, and we'll be rocking and rolling.
Dead Tree Productions, Tony's Fox Body Garage. Oh, it could have been. I was fanatical with that car.
What color was yours, maroon?
I was nuts. I was absolutely nuts. What's that?
What color was yours? Maroon?
Black.
Black. Oh, yours is black? Yeah. Like the Mr. Mustang one?
Black with a red gut. Yeah, his was gray. Black with a gray gut.
Oh.
And mine was black with a red gut.
Oh, what's the best 400 poncho build? 70 and before, 400. Those are the ones that's going to have decent compression, I guess.
Wait, let's go see. VCMD propulsion, your last comment. VCMD propulsion. Let me go back and see what you said, my brother. How far back we got to go for this?
I don't know. I can't even read it. You're going with.
Another prototype I have is intake gaskets that spin the air with a blade right on top of the valve to atomize the mix and fuel better. It's like bro, you're pissing in the wind, right? VCMD, you're pissing in the wind. It's not. I mean, yeah, I get it. Your wheels are turning, and you're working on ideas. You're brainstorming, and I think that's a great thing to do. But you are not going to atomize atomize the fuel any better with propellers or screens or anything like that in the.
All that's going to do is take up plenty of volume.
Yeah, and actually probably not
disrupt
out of atomization.
Disrupt air velocity.
Exactly.
Roger Isbell, yeah, I'm back. I'm no longer amongst the land of the dead.
You got to VCMD. I'm so sorry, brother. I don't mean to blow you off like that, and I'm sorry if I came off like an asshole because I don't mean to be. VCMD, listen. Anything you do, anything you put in the intake runner, okay, I know in theory you're saying, well, it's going to churn things up. It'll break things up into a finer particle, but it doesn't work like that. Once the fuel is atomized, anything it contacts on the way to the intake valve will cause some of that fuel to fall out of suspension, out of atomization, and you'll end up with droplets. You're actually, by doing what you're trying to do there, you're actually working against the principle that you're trying to create. And I'm sorry if I came off as being an asshole, because I didn't mean to. Anybody whose wheels are turning deserves the respect.
Well, you got to think of it like this: the internal combustion engine's been around for how long now? 125 years.
Yes.
A lot of this stuff has already been tried. To be honest with you, the guys that okay, there is successful things in that have happened. Is anybody familiar with swirl porting? Okay, swirl porting was like a late 70s pro stock thing. Remember Glidden swirl porting the heads? And that was like what everybody was doing at the time. And it was causing the air to rotate and you would get more volume in the cylinder. I think that all went away in the 80s, right? When they figured out that if you perfect the plenum volume of the intake manifold, it works ideally with your intake runner diameter. Oh, it's not diameter, it's actually overall volume. It's like length and height and
speed. And that all ties to piston speed and intended RPM, piston speed, the stroke, the rod ratio. All of those things count in terms of intake port design, optimizing intake port design, volume and length. But it's not as simple as you think it is. Or maybe it's too simple and can't really be impregnated. Okay, that's what it is. It's actually too simple. And because it's a simple process, it's like it doesn't want to be modified. Anytime you try to modify it, you cause a disruption, and that negates the effect that you're trying to achieve.
Oh, I didn't get a sunburn. My face and my cheeks are just red. I'm trying to stay warm. And I lost 15 pounds.
Douglas Fowler, Tony, how goes that turbo slant going this year? Talk to Jim Bennett. He's got the car. It's over at his shop. He's got his own channel, Jim Bennett's Hot Rod Garage. He was supposed to send that thing back down here. I haven't talked to him about it, but go over there and hound him. Tell him, get Tony that turbo dart back over here so we can get it straightened out.
So I'm wondering that, like, I see everybody's doing the 109 mile a gallon, blah, 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 blah. I wonder how you got that small slant in the Miata, right? What's hot air with that thing?
What's what?
Hot air? Yeah. I mean, it's just over there freaking taking up space, right?
Well, I'm going to do the Mrs. Landy.
Oh.
Mrs. Landy is going to become a mileage car.
Yeah.
Or one that
I wasn't thinking mileage. I was just thinking, try your the hot air theories.
Because but here's my hot air theory. It doesn't work.
Well, it does work, but there's just no real gain to it. And like after all that's done, you got 1 mile a gallon better.
It doesn't. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
The Smokey Fiero. I think the biggest gain that Smokey had on that crazy Fiero was his own tires. His own tires were on that thing. Yeah, I know. I don't know if you knew that, where he shaved the tires and shaped them himself.
No.
Right. Yeah, all 4 tires. They were all one-off Smokey Unique tires.
Hot air makes the fuel less stable. Well, I mean, it's not even that. You're displacing oxygen. As you heat the mixture, you're displacing oxygen.
You're working negatively against the efficiency.
So you're getting the hot vapor concept will only work under certain circumstances. A vapor engine will only work under the vapor engine, because you're using a hot vapor, you're displacing oxygen. You need oxygen for the duration of burn. So what happens is if you build a hot vapor engine, here's what happens, okay? You'll get a spark that goes like, you'll get a combustion pulse like this, okay? That's your combustion pulse. So you're going to get, piston's going to come top dead center, close to it, right? Just about top dead center. You're going to light it and you're going to get like that, and it's going to push the piston down. That's what you get with hot vapor. When you go with conventional, like you cool the charge, you actually get oxygen in there, you get this. You see what I'm saying? And it gets pushed further down. You get more effective degrees of crankshaft rotation. The pressure pulse acts on more degrees of crankshaft rotation, and so you get more power. If you get more power out of the engine organically, you have to feed it less foot to make the same result. And so a hot vapor engine may get better gas mileage at, let's say, at X miles an hour. So 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, the motor's only going to make 20 horsepower, 30 horsepower. Yes, you vaporize that fuel as much as you can, and this engine is fully capable of generating the 20 or 30 horsepower to do that. But when you ask this thing to actually move the load, keep up with traffic, pass somebody, go up a freaking hill, it's got no power. There's no oxygen in there. So, and you can turbocharge it all you want, but all you're doing is you're squeezing hot air in. You're not actually bringing in any oxygen.
Well, so Eric Conway, yes, I did see that episode of Nick's Garage where they were working on that 455 Buick. I always thought like people are kind of unfamiliar with Smokey Yunick in the world these days because he's been gone for so long now. I mean, when did he actually pass away? Do you know?
Smokey?
Yeah,
2003. He's been gone for a while. Yeah.
Okay. The LT1 version of the GM small block that came out from like 94 to 97, something like that. That was a Smokey Yunick invention. That was actually Smokey Yunick's small block Chevy reverse cooling theory, right? Then that's how that all started. Was it was cooling the heads first and then the block second. When most engines would cool the block first and then the heads second.
70 Hemi is saying vapor density versus oxygen is the key. Well, here's the thing. Okay, let's say you've got a dense vapor, right? And then you introduce oxygen to the mix. Now you have an explosion. Now you have detonation.
Well, the problem that I feel about the hot vapor deal is it atomizes the fuel, like ideally, but it's also working negatively against efficiency because it's now bringing the temperature up to like 400 something degrees or 300 degrees, right?
Right. And
it's hot.
Well, it's just exactly the same as if you have an exhaust leak. Okay. And you take your foot off the gas and it starts popping at the exhaust. And it's because the exhaust is drawing air into the vacuum, is drawing air into, and it's igniting the fuel in the exhaust system. Well, it's the same thing if you have a hot vapor engine and you put more oxygen into it.
What I was getting at was when you bring it up to like 300 or 400 degrees, the fuel is ideally atomized. If you ever looked inside that Smokey Yunick hot vapor intake manifold, it's got a whole bunch of like metal scrubbers in there to completely atomize it. Because it's not, you're not even going for atomized, you're going for molecular distribution, right? I mean, it's a vapor. It's no longer atomization, it's a vapor, right? And it's not at any kind of cool temperature. That thing was operating like 300 something degrees, and it only works with turbocharging the engine. It only works that way. But here's what I was thinking is, in a car, like to build your torque, let's say you build just take a basic 350 Chevy, and to build torque, when you first give it fuel, it increases how much fuel is inside the intake charge, right? So it technically runs rich for like a few seconds until it actually becomes into calibration based on the load, right? So it'll go rich. That hot vapor doesn't do that at all. Not really, because it doesn't change the air-fuel ratio much. It's meant for constant RPM draw. And it would work perfectly if we were looking at the world as a big picture here. Okay, everybody's wanting the EV. If you took a 4-cylinder engine and you did the Smokey Yunick hot vapor and you ran it at 2200 RPM all the time, and you ran it to a battery, and you ran, like an electric motor to a battery or a generator to a battery, and you use that battery to drive around on and leaving the engine at the optimal RPM all the time, it'll get some freaking amazing mileage. It really would. But then I think, you're very close to exploding with a bit of vapor. Like it's too close to, I'm telling you, I see stupid people all the time putting diesel on a gas car and gas in a diesel car. And I just can't fathom the idea of vaporized gasoline.
Yeah, no, I get the idea, right? But the compromise you get in a normal engine is that some of the fuel is vaporized by the intake valve. The intake valve, as I talked about in that video, The back face of the intake valve is between 400 and 500 degrees once the engine is once it's up to operating temperature. The valve stem is sucking heat out of the stem, and the seat is sucking heat out of the edge of the valve. But the back face of the valve that the fuel comes into contact with is 500 to 600 degrees. And that gives you instant vaporization of that atomized mixture that's coming in. What happens is you get a combination of vapor of what's getting hit by the intake valve, and then you've got the atomized fuel with oxygen that's going around the intake valve. And it's that combination of vapor and atomized fuel that gives you the duration of burn. See, that's the thing that nobody ever look. Here's the essence of here's the essence of power, right? And I'm not talking about for racing or anything like that. Here's the essence of power, and this is the thing you never hear anybody talk about, but it's the ultimate end all of it all, right? Duration of burn. How many degrees of crankshaft rotation is the piston actually being driven by the expanding gases? And remember, as the piston drives away from top dead center, the chamber is getting bigger. So there has to be enough volume in that chamber to have follow through. So you light it at, let's say, 10 degrees before top dead center, just to pull a number out of my ass, okay? Now you get top dead center. The combustion chamber is at its smaller size. The flame front is spreading, and before it can push the piston down, it has to completely fill the chamber with pressure. Now the piston is on its way down. Piston, yeah. Right. Now, typically, a typical engine peaks between, I forget what it was, like 35 and 45 degrees past top dead center is peak combustion, or peak pressure. And then after that, it starts to bleed down drastically. Because remember, the piston is going faster, and at the same time, the chamber is getting bigger. So it's outrunning the flame front. On a vapor engine, it's done, man. There is nothing past that initial.
That's why it would be perfect for, like, if you had something that was like a quench motor with high compression and a really short stroke, right? And it'd be like all right there. You know, if you had, it'd have to be one of them weirdo 60s modified production style small block Chevrolets with like a 2-inch stroke. That would be ideal.
So Sid Durock, that's why dual spark plug engines do better. To an extent, with a dual plug engine, okay, now picture this now, right? Combustion chamber is, the cylinder is a 4-inch diameter bore, okay? The spark plug is here. The spark plug lights the fire, and the fire has to go all the way across the bore, right? The pressure has to rise across the bore before it can drive the piston down. If you're lighting it with 2 spark plugs, now you're reducing the amount of time that it takes for the flame front to get across the chamber and start the pressure pulse down. So because of that, you don't need as much ignition lead. So instead of running, let's say 34 degrees, you can run, again, pulling numbers out of my ass, you can run 24 degrees, which means that you've got 10 extra degrees past top dead center of push. And so that's why a dual plug setup would be beneficial. Does that make any sense?
And some of these guys are asking, like, can a diesel work in that? So no, a diesel can't work in the one. Well, okay, the duration of burn is considerably longer on diesel based on how much more energy is contained within the fuel, right?
Right.
But then the other thing is you can't get the diesel atomized or vaporized enough for it to work in this situation. Gasoline, it was very difficult for them to get gasoline that way. Now, I think an E85 engine probably would have a better chance of being a better hot vapor engine. But you want to talk about economy being down? Ooh, it takes 30% more.
You know, one of the problems that we have, right, as like mechanics, hot rodders, gearheads, tinkerers, whatever we happen to be, is that we focus too much on the external parts. So we think about this cam, this intake, these headers, blah, 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 and all that, with this ignition, how much timing, how much this, how much that. But we do it all, and nobody ever talks about the duration of burn. And that's how you have to look at it, okay? Because remember now, duration of burn, how many degrees of crankshaft rotation is the expanding gas having an actual effect on the piston as she's being driven down?
Right.
What effect does that intake manifold or that carburetor or that cam or those headers
have on a rate of burn?
Have on, right, not even the rate of burn, the duration of burn.
Okay.
The duration of burn. See, that's so like, okay, like, let's just pretend we wipe the slate clean of everything that's ever been learned about cars, and we're just going to go from the very basic.
Clean sheet of paper.
Clean sheet of paper, right? If I had to teach a class based on the clean sheet of paper, and we know nothing about anything else, the very first installment of that class, 101 would be, how far can you get that piston driven with a pressure, driven under pressure? So how many degrees of crankshaft duration? It's the duration of burn that gives you the combination of power and economy, because you can't get fuel economy if you only got a very short duration of burn, but you have to give it that much more fuel to make up the power. You have to give it that much more foot to make the power. Does that make any sense?
Right. Well, and that's where you see some of them, like an engine, when you add stroke to it, some of them don't gain anything really. You don't like, oh man, 20 foot-pounds, that's all I got after, half-inch more stroke. Come on, what the heck? And then other ones, you're like, you add a little bit of stroke and it's all the world. It's like 150 foot-pounds of torque. Like, holy cow. Ruckworts one says this can all be calculated. And that's true. That's how engineers used to do it.
Well, here the thing about diesels, diesel fuel burns slower than gasoline, so you get a more. It's just like that's what nitro. That's how nitro makes its power, because it burns so slowly. You get this enormously long pressure pulse that is continuing after the exhaust valve opens, and that's why it's so loud, because the exhaust valve is interrupting the combustion process. Whereas on a gasoline engine, you're hearing the echo from the combustion process. On a nitro motor, you're hearing the actual combustion process, right? That's why they're as loud as they are. It's not that the fuel is any louder, it's the duration of burn. That's where the power comes from. But diesels, the big advantage that diesels have is that, well, you're dealing with a compression ignition. So instead of the fuel starting to be burned, let's say 30 degrees before top dead center, the fuel is being burned at like 10 degrees before top dead center. So you've got that extra duration. The same volume of fuel, a slower burning fuel, will give you a longer duration. Let's see.
Let's change the subject.
Diesels are under so much strain, more compression equals more power. Yes, but there's pumping losses. See, diesels have huge pumping losses because of the compression. That's one of the things, right? So right away, people are like, oh, raise the compression, you'll make more horsepower. Yeah, you make more horsepower, but theoretically, so in theory, by raising the compression ratio of a cylinder, you're increasing its volatility and its ability, the strength of the downward push. But you're losing it in terms of, you're losing not all of it, you're losing a great percentage of it in pumping losses, because you've got to squeeze it that much tighter on all of the cylinders that aren't on their power stroke. So that's why you get, compression ratio increases are not as effective as they should be on paper. Like you raise the compression ratio a point, you're looking at, I think it's like a 4% gain. In theory, it should be like a 12% gain, but you've got so much lost in pumping losses, that it just doesn't.
Northern Grit says, so if gasoline ratio is the ideal ratio is 14.71, what would nitro be?
See, here's the thing: nitro releases its own oxygen.
Well, and it's also the more the nitro you put in there, the more power it makes, right?
Well, he's talking about the 14701 is the ideal combustion for gasoline, right?
Right,
and it's not exact that it changes.
He's talking about stoichiometric.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that ratio doesn't exist on nitro, because nitro releases its own oxygen as it burns. So the oxygen supply is there. You could literally have 100% liquid in the combustion chamber, and if you didn't hydraulic it and you could light it,
you'd make the most power.
You make all the power in the world. So that goes out the window with that.
Oh, Hemihead 68. Thanks.
Thank you, Hemihead.
Yeah. It's not often I get told I said something smart.
There you go. I appreciate that, Hemihead. Thank you so much.
Pumping losses on a hit and miss engine.
You sent me here because nitro provides some of its own. No, man, it's almost all of its own. Let's see.
The Ferrari 1-liter 2-stroke was one of the most efficient engines built.
Nitromethane has oxygen in it, CH3 and O2, and it releases it as it burns.
it's the same thing that happens with nitrous oxide. You put nitrous oxide in an engine and you start having the combustion, it releases the oxygen.
Right. What happens is once nitrous oxide is released, as again, the nitrogen cools the surfaces, and the oxygen allows you to burn more fuel. And because you can put more fuel in there, you get more duration of burn. So instead of that thing being all used up at 43 degrees after top dead center, now you're going to 58, 60 degrees past top dead center on your power. That's where the power comes from.
I love nitrous oxide. That's my favorite power adder. It really is. Because it's cheap and it's, oh man, is it fun. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and it's like Mr. Hyde after you put him in a bottle of Mountain Dew and shook him up. It's really pissed off. I love it.
Oxygenated race fuel. Yeah, exactly. So you can run an oxygenated race fuel at a much denser, you can run it much fatter. And because you can run it fatter, it's oxygenated, you can run it fatter, you get that longer duration of burn. Everything comes down to duration of burn. And a hot vapor engine has an extremely short and violent duration, burn. And that's not what you want for good flexible power. And I'm not talking about horsepower, like, drag racing horsepower. No, I'm talking about just driving down the freaking road.
Andy chimes in.
Did someone say nitrous?
I still remember the day we went down for the 318 Nationals or whatever it was, and you were leaning on Bottle Rocket for the first time with a bottle.
Yeah,
you were
that
like
was fun,
smiling. Yeah. It sounds good. Gosh, it sounds good. You can tell when it comes on. I mean, the motor goes.
There's no mistaking it.
Yeah, it goes from like, hey, I'm running pretty good to like, who wants a fight? Will an engine run on MAP gas? I'm sure it will.
So more fuel in is more power out.
To a point.
As long as you can light it, and you need oxygen to light it. Unless the fuel has oxygen in it, like oxygenated gasoline or nitromethane.
Let's see. Felt speed 33 off topic, but are these AHRA stickers on your laptop available for sale anywhere? Yeah, you can go to AHRA website and click on our merchandise link. It'll take you over to eBay and you can buy all the decals you want. Or you can just look for our eBay store. It's I think AHRA official or something like that.
Ratio of fuel to oxygen needs to be maintained for full combustion. Yes. Siddharth, the vaporized fuel ignite first, then the rest of it follow. Yes. Yeah. So typically, that's why your engine runs like shit until it starts to get warm. Okay. So picture this. You start up your engine, right? And you need to choke on. If you don't have the choke on, you have to keep feathering the throttle to keep the accelerator pump squirting gas in there just to keep it alive, because it doesn't want to run on that liquid gas, right? It's hard to light the liquid gas. Then as the engine starts to warm up, what's happening is, don't forget about the intake manifold or any of that. What happens is the valves get hot. The valves get hot and the head of the piston, the top of the piston gets hot. And as the valve starts to get hot, it vaporizes some of that fuel that's coming in. Then it lights much easier and you don't have to give it as much fuel.
That's where also the heat crossover from the head through the intake manifold starts heating the carburetor. That's when it really starts to become effective.
The vapor guys get carried away with this idea now, right? Because obviously when the engine is cold, right, and there's no vapor, there's anywhere happening in the system, it runs like shit, and you got to keep pumping fuel into it. So the vapor guys take this concept of, well, if some vaporization is good, complete vaporization must be better, and it's not. It's a compromise.
So Mr. Will asks, aren't higher compression gas engines more efficient? Yes. The higher you take the compression ratio, the more efficient the engine gets. But what you start running into is limitations of the fuel.
Right.
The fuel will burn.
Right. And also pumping losses. So what happens is when you increase the compression ratio of the engine, the potency of each power pulse is enhanced. But at the same time, that engine is an air pump, and its pumping losses rise also. So there's a point of diminishing returns with compression ratio.
Anthony Smithy likes the color combination of my hat. He said originally he wasn't too keen on it, and now he's digging it. Man, I don't have any more of these. You can't get them anymore. It's what do they call that? Supply chain disruption. That started about June. We ran out of these hats. I went to buy some more, and then it was like, no, you got to find a different hat, buddy. You can't get those anymore. So,
How about HHO fuel? That's something I know very little about, but I am about to start
HHO?
learning. Hydrogen.
oh, pass. Telling you, dumb people putting diesel in a gas and diesel. There's idiots smoking while filling up their gas tank.
There's guys that are they're working with water to release.
No,
hydrogen.
I got it. I just hydrogen is the bad way to go. There's too many dumb people out there.
I don't see the thing with hydrogen is I don't think that you can get. See, you can run an engine off of hydrogen. You can run an engine off. You can run it literally. Okay, you can run an engine off of hairspray. Get a can of Aquanet, spray it down your intake, and the engine will run. It'll idle just fine. Okay, but it won't make any power. It'll rattle and bang and everything else. And the problem with hydrogen, and like I said, I know very little about it. So I'm just gonna speak like off the top of my head my thought concerning it. Okay, is that hydrogen is extremely volatile, and because it's so volatile, you'll get a very short pressure pulse. And you won't get the duration of burn that you need to have good power, to have usable power. And that's why you'll see these guys will run stationary engines, like Project Farm runs his lawnmower off of vapors. Yes, I know you can run an engine off of vapors. There's never any question about that. But how much power does that lawnmower make? So you're running it off of vapors, and you come across some tall, damp grass where it actually needs some follow through. Okay,
and the gas kills it.
Can it mow? Can that lawnmower that's running off of vapors? Yes, it can mow short, dry grass, and you'll be just fine. But when you come into a taller thing or some weeds,
it's under load.
Yeah, it can't mow that, and I would seriously doubt they would be able to because it doesn't have the duration of burn.
So, Vega 660 New Channel says, could hydrogen compete with EV?
No, I do not believe so. And again,
I don't think you could hold enough volume of it because it's going to take so much of that fuel. It would almost need to be liquid hydrogen that you would use. Like, I don't know how you could compete with EV because the EV distance is already fairly short. But when you're talking hundreds of miles, then liquid hydrogen, you got to remember, hydrogen's like one freaking atom, right? And I just don't think you couldn't carry enough. I don't think they compete.
Yeah, no, I guess I have to learn about the hydrogen, but I seriously think it's the same thing as you're getting with the same situation as a vapor deal where it's just done. Okay, and you're only going to get a few degrees of push out of it. So engine will run on it, no question about it. You got not even the slightest doubt that you can run and idle and probably drive at 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour with a hydrogen setup. No question about it. But will it go up hills? Will it pass? Will it carry a load? You know what I'm saying? Does it have acceptable performance? And I would seriously doubt that's possible.
And Zero says electrocuted water makes the hydrogen. Seen a Ford Probe running off of it. Inventor dude. Never seen him again. I had many questions after he drove away. Big oil.
Yeah, no, listen, again, you can run an engine off a hairspray. You can run an engine, you can make an engine.
Have you ever heard the Henry Ford, the conspiracy theory for the Henry Ford conspiracy theory?
Which one?
The Model A. Which one came first? The
T.
The T came first? Okay, so Model T, big oil, which there wasn't really such a thing as big oil. And I'll throw the story that I heard out there. And I'll tell you where all the holes are at in this fucking thing.
That was all Standard Oil and Rockefeller.
Right, but see, Standard Oil and Rockefeller worked with Henry Ford to push Henry Ford to use his leftover crap, which was gasoline, because he was making kerosene. But anyway, before getting off topic, the story goes like this. Henry Ford couldn't get enough gasoline from big oil. They wouldn't give him enough. They wouldn't give him any. So they stopped selling him gasoline for his cars. So he made magnetic flywheel on the Model T.
Okay.
And he ran it off a magneto on these magnets on the flywheel, and it allowed the engine to run without gasoline. Now, of course, Big Oil saw that this was a huge mistake on their part, so they started helping him out. Well, if you look at how the whole story goes, Big Oil was Standard Oil, which was John D. Rockefeller, who put Henry Ford on the map, right? John D. Rockefeller is making kerosene, was selling to everybody as kerosene, as a heating element and lighting element in their house. The leftover product that he couldn't get rid of was gasoline. So he created a market to get rid of the gasoline. He probably would have virtually gave it to Henry Ford for free instead of cutting him off at the knees. But he's the one that funded Henry Ford to get on his feet.
I just thought of something. Okay, I just thought of something. If you want to gauge how good a fuel is, right, the quality of the fuel, the results you're going to get with a given fuel, take a portion of that fuel and light it. Okay, the faster it lights, the worse it's going to be. The quicker it burns, the more volatile the hit, the worse it's going to be. Right? The perfect example is gasoline and nitro. Okay, so if I used to light you're gonna light a puddle of gasoline, right? Pour some gas on the ground and you throw a match and it goes poof, and then it burns. It burns for a long time.
Right.
Okay. Nitro,
you couldn't get me to throw a match at it.
Nothing would happen. The match would go out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you had a puddle of nitro and you threw a lit match in it, the match would go out.
I don't think I could be drunk enough to do that.
You would actually have to take the match and place it and put it on the fuel and let it go, and it would go woof, like that, and it would burn with this pale yellow flame. When nitro burns, it's just a pale yellow flame, and it's like lighter fluid. I swear, it has about the same.
So it's like
as lighter fluid,
like octane. It'd be like 300. Right, because it's so hard to get it to burn.
Yep.
I couldn't imagine it. I do know that all of that changes under pressure, right? So the more pressure you add to the nitromethane, the easier it is to combust. The same with gasoline, though. Joe K says, "Can we bottle up cow farts and use it to fuel an engine?" I'm sure you could.
Let's see. Nitrogen alone will not burn. No, nitrogen is a cooling agent. Like in nitrous oxide, none of the nitrogen burns. The nitrogen is there. It cools everything that it touches, so that the things that it touches can tolerate the extra burn from the oxygen and the extra fuel.
Correct. Octane is just the point of detonation.
Right. Resistance to detonation.
Let's see. Burn speed is controllable with dopant addition. I don't know what that means. All right. I've been using alternative fuel for decades. What's that? What's alternative fuel? EA5? Oh, well, okay. Roger Isabel, the new Mopar 6 is in line with a turbo expected 400 plus horsepower. And today, which is no longer Mopar, it's Stellantis, dropped that from their entire production run.
What happened now?
That new Chrysler inline 6 everybody's been kind of raving about just got dropped from the production. The GMT, whatever, GME.
I heard they were going 100% electric.
They dropped that engine completely. You can't even get it in the vehicle now. Methanol has an octane rating of around 130. So this Andy Gee's garage. It is fairly high. Methanol, that was one of the neatest things about methanol is like you could really overdrive a blower with that thing. There was no problem with like too much cylinder pressure.
No, the problem is volume. You know, in order to make any effective power, you've got to double. It takes 2.2 times the amount of alcohol as gasoline to make the equivalent power. So, and power, again, goes from how many degrees can you drive the piston under load, the duration of burn. So to equal the duration of burn of gasoline with alcohol, you need 2.2 times the amount. Sean O'Brien, thank you for that, man. Let's talk about propane and propane accessories. They run shit on propane all the time. Propane works because it's relatively slow burning. It's not an extremely volatile fuel.
There was a car in NHRA Super Gas in like the
early 80s. It was running propane.
It was running propane, yeah.
but propane is mellow. You know, it's like if you try to do it on acetylene is volatile. Okay, so you couldn't make good power with acetylene. It burns too quickly, so you get a like that, and then what's driving the piston the rest of the way? Propane burns relatively slowly, and so that's why they can use them on forklifts and all sorts of machinery, and you can drive cars on them. Propane is a slow burning fuel. And it's a vapor, okay,
and it doesn't have any extremely harmful emissions.
right? Which is the other thing I understand about these vapor guys, right? They're insisting on vaporizing the gasoline. Well, just run the freaking thing on propane. If you're running it on propane, you're literally doing the same as that.
It's already it's a vapor now.
It's already a vapor.
What about natural gas?
I'm not, I don't know the burn rates all of these.
I know they're very similar to it's very similar to propane.
Yeah, but I don't know which would be more.
I know the emissions, the octane rating of natural gas is a little bit lower than propane. Propane's like 114, and then the natural gas is like 108.
I don't know. In New York, they were running a lot of the
taxis, right?
On liquid natural gas. Not the taxis. They have like like Con Ed or the utility, a lot of the utility vehicles and shit like that.
Oh, and the
LNG.
buses, yeah.
Yeah, buses. A lot of them were liquid natural gas. So I guess it's similar to propane.
Well, I know overseas when I lived in Australia for 3 years, all the taxis were run off of it was either liquid natural gas or propane. I can't remember, but they would always be they would always backfire and pop all the time because I think it was because of a lean condition. Like they're always running it on so lean, right?
Mm-hmm.
That when they put it under a heavy load, they'd pop and carry on.
I imagine it would be more susceptible to things like operating temperature and ambient air temperature.
It might be. I don't know. I had never seen anything like it till one of the cabbies showed me. Like, yeah, look at this. I opened the trunk. I'm like, what the hell is that big cylinder? Are you trying to blow someplace up? I don't want to put my bags in there. And the guy's like, no, man, that's my propane or natural gas tank. I just thought it was interesting. I had never seen anybody else running stuff on it like that.
The new buses in Jacksonville, Florida, run on compressed natural gas.
They got to be clean when you take them apart.
But again, you see, like nothing works as well as gasoline. You're just not going to replace gasoline in internal combustion. It works. It always has worked. It always will work. It's the perfect.
It's the smallest amount of energy that you can put and carry with you. That's least volatile, right? I mean, this has been figured out. There's a reason why the science behind it has dictated we use gasoline for so damn long, right? I mean, that's one thing that nobody's looking at is that this has been around forever for a reason, for a freaking reason. Like there's a reason why you don't put a gun to your head and pull the trigger. Somebody figured out a long time ago that's not smart, right? Same thing with gasoline in the car. 100 years ago, they figured out that's the easiest, most simplified way, and there will be very few replacements for it. I'm sorry, but John D. Rockefeller and Henry Ford beat you to the punch. You're not gonna EV them out of the way. You're not.
Terrence, you talk about sunken valves with compressed natural gas. I don't think you'd have that problem. I don't think there's enough exhaust heat. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's enough exhaust heat to really have that be a problem.
I don't see where there would be. Well, no, because even if the octane is higher, you add more timing, so it's not dumping a whole bunch of excess fuel.
Well, and see, they don't make a lot of power, right? Like the gas is like a compressed natural gas or liquid natural gas. They don't make a lot of power. There isn't a lot of BTU there.
Oh, heat-wise?
So I don't see. He's talking about sunken valves. I don't think you would have a problem with sunken valves because you're not getting the combustion temperatures that you would with. You're not getting the exhaust temperature that you would with gasoline.
I don't think it has the heat rating, the energy rating of gasoline.
It doesn't, and that's why I'm saying he was asking about what about its valve seats. And I don't think valve seats should be affected by it because it doesn't have the temperature.
Well, George Reed says he did many a valve job on CNG vehicles. So how was the valves, George? I mean, were they bad? Were they sunken? Were the valves beat to death? Was the seats just smashed?
Let's see. Butanol.
Jupiter must.
I've never heard of butanol.
What does it say in regards?
Burnt exhaust seats. George Reed, what burnt exhaust seats?
Oh, George Reed, he was the guy that was doing the valve jobs on the CNG cars.
Oh, okay. It burns exhaust. Okay.
So maybe it does burn hotter.
I guess it does.
With propane, valves were known for melting. Well, maybe that's a situation where that's something worth trying out. Sodium-filled valves and running on propane.
Well, did they use sodium-filled? So did they use sodium-filled valves? Did they have valve rotators? I mean, see, I know nothing about. I know very, very little about engines that run on gases. You know, hydrogen or propane. I know that they do it. I understand how it works, but I don't know the dynamics involved in it.
Hardened valve seats for propane.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you probably needed like a minimum, like a stainless steel valve, right? But the sodium-filled valve would pull some of the heat. Well, would not be affected by heat as much.
Andrew Jones, the larger the hydrocarbon molecule, the more BTUs. The more chemical bonds that break during combustion, the more power. Okay. There you go. 46 Flatty, $5. Thank you, sir. Tony, your analogy of fast versus slow burning fuel is spot on. Consider black powder versus smokeless powder in firearms.
Yeah. Which smokeless is like instantaneous, right? And black powder burns over a long period of time.
Yeah. The slower the burning fuel, the more power you're going to get out of it.
How much better do the stainless valves hold? I don't know. This is where it would be interesting to. This is where it would be totally worthwhile taking the Miata slant and build a propane-powered motor, right? Because it would get decent mileage. You could put a 5-gallon propane tank in there. You probably got one on your grill.
It doesn't interest me enough to really mess around with it.
Well, then you instantaneously have a high vapor motor.
That doesn't really interest me enough either.
Smokeless is way more powerful than black powder. Actually, smokeless is instantly explodes, right? And black powder burns over a long period of time. Isn't that how that works?
I think so. Chris Leistig. So longer burn, longer stroke, not necessarily together. Propane has more octane, well over 100.
Oh yeah, it's 108. I think didn't I say that earlier?
I think so, yeah. BS Custom says they both burn quickly. Smokeless powder has more energy per gram. So gasoline versus E85 or black powder is E85. Okay. Smokeless powder, John Goldberg is.
Okay. So the black powder is just like essentially the gasoline, and then the E85 would be your smokeless, right? So I wonder what they're putting in there to cut it. Is that more sulfur or more sulfur?
I know nothing about this stuff. Martin Hildenbrand, yes, propane exhaust valves are sodium filled. Okay.
Well, that would be totally something worth trying out, though, I think.
Linda Wall. Hey, Tony, you've created a monster here. I'm now bold enough to do a complete rewire of my CJ7, evolved from the baby steps I got from your videos on my carb, etc. Thanks, sir. It's Linda. Good luck with that. Awesome. I'm glad. See, that's the best thing, when somebody tells you that you inspire them to actually get out
and do something that they would have never done before.
Yeah, that is a win. That's what we're here for. That's the mission that we're on here. Vegas 660 new channel. Thank you, sir. Diesel electric. Has that been tried in vehicles aside from locomotives? The technology been for many.
Yeah. Yes, I've seen some shows on Back when Discovery was actually like a channel that actually discovered stuff,
Right.
they had a thing where a guy was doing a diesel electric setup. There was another guy that did a diesel hydraulic setup where it ran a diesel engine at a certain speed all the time,
Okay.
and it had a hydraulic
Yeah,
pump and reservoir.
Well, that's a lot of big machinery is like that.
Right.
There's no connection.
But he had a
between the
lightweight
motor
car with just a hydraulic setup on it, and it would easily run 30 miles an hour, but it would get like 150 miles to the gallon. But it was like a super lightweight vehicle. And if you put anything on it, like let's say the guy wore a hat, it dropped 10 miles an hour, right? I mean, it was that bad.
Well, you know, on a hybrid setup like that, with let's say like a vapor gas engine, you know, that's a situation where I think a hot vapor engine would actually be viable.
That's what I was saying earlier, that you ran it at the peak RPM all the time, no change in
Right.
RPM. There's no load difference or anything. That's where diesel, or that's where that hot vapor with a generator
Right.
to a battery would be ideal. Perfect.
I could see that.
I think it would definitely be worthwhile of trying that.
It's just what sodium valves used to break in the 427 Fords. Everything used to break in the Fords. Be honest, bro. Everything breaks in 427 Fords.
Not after the third attempt at connecting rods, because didn't they have the Le Mans 427 rod? It was just for the Le Mans motors.
I remember those.
It's like twice as big and twice as heavy. But I tell you what, did you ever watch the Ford versus Ferrari, Ford v Ferrari? Oh, that's a pretty good movie. And those 427 sounds so good coming down the straights at Le Mans.
AEG is saying there's a company in Canada converting logging trucks to diesel electric.
Well, there's probably a lot of money in that, because if you take super industrial stuff like mining or logging, or where they're hauling heavy loads over short distances, but it's like, it uses 40,000 gallons of diesel fuel a week. There's probably a lot to that.
Okay, let's see. Auto Scene was a good movie. Yeah, I've never seen it.
Use bunker fuel with a gas turbine. I'll tell you what was the neatest thing. Do you remember the 60s style deuce and a half?
Sure.
Those were multi-fuel. They would run on any fuel that burnt, right? Like you could put WD-40 in it. You could put kerosene, gas, whatever, and the thing could run. I wonder how hard it'd be to find one of them suckers and see what it would really take. And like, what's the extreme? Because it's meant to be a multi-fuel.
Right.
You can buy one for $500-600 probably at government auction, and just here, let's put some acetone in and see what happens, or some nitromethane, right? What's going to happen?
I wonder how it compensates for the values of a different fuel.
I have no idea. I know that we ran out of fuel in one time, and the guy was sweating bullets, right? Because it's technically a diesel engine.
Right.
So when you run it dry, the pump is empty. So how do you get fuel up there, right? But at the time, they weren't turbocharged. So you just take the air inlet off, pour a bunch of fuel down it, and start it up. And it'll prime the pump. But it'll run like shit for 20 minutes.
Many tanks are multi-fuel. So on those multi-fuel setups, right? How do they compensate for the value of different fuels?
I'm assuming it has to measure some kind of specific gravity of the fuel inside the way it's set up, right? Like it has a nozzle that's like a variable diameter nozzle that it's being fed some kind of information about what the specific gravity of the fuel is, and it's changing the nozzle diameter, or I don't know, the nozzle. It was just interesting.
Bad tree production. So Tony, you're going to add some mini bikes to the fleet, dude.
There you go.
I have a thing on. I want a Honda Monkey now in the worst possible way.
What's a monkey?
I'll have to show you one. What was that now?
Brian Power says the deuce and a half multi-fuel has a fuel density compensator to make up for the different grades.
Brian, can you explain how that works, like in a paragraph? similar to having 3 different carburetors on the same engine.
Oh, so the deuce and a half with the turbocharger is called a Whistler. We had one of the later ones.
Dickie Farley is going for the likes. Thank you, Dickie Farley. Yeah, guys, if you can just hit the thumbs up there, it helps the algorithm. It keeps everything rolling over here. I hate to do that. Now, subscribe, ring the bell, give it a thumbs up. I hate to do that. You know what I'm saying? I always feel so creepy doing that, but it does help. The
multi-fuel engines were lower compression diesels. Oh, well, that would kind of explain them being anemic compared to the turbocharged ones. I was like, you really didn't want the multi-fuel one. They were kind of anemic. Yes, and the early multi-fuel ones ran on Al Gore.
Joe Brennan, what is the advantage of running 3 2-barrel engines instead of 1 4-barrel? Well, back in the day, it was size. If you go back to the 1960s, the biggest carburetors you had available was the Holley 350, the 950, the 3-barrel. The 850 Holley was the biggest thing that was available at the time. So if you wanted more CFM, you needed to add more carburetors.
What's interesting is those carburetors were all generally like 500 CFM each, right?
Well, the 6-pack, right, and the same with the Chevy, because Chevy is the same carburetors. Actually, Ford used the same bodies, but the 350 center and the 2500 outboards.
It's like a Trail 50.
Yeah.
That's a new bike.
Yeah, and it's completely street legal.
Is it a trail? Is it like a Trail 50, like 50 cc?
No, it's 125.
Oh, so you're going to pay tax for it just like you would. You should take the badges off and put like 49.9 cc.
Yeah, that's all. No, they're completely street legal. They got headlight, taillight, turn signals. They got everything.
Will they run road speeds?
Yeah.
Huh.
So the 6-pack setup with the 350 center and the 2500 outboards on paper flows 1350 CFM, but in reality it flows 950 CFM as rated by 4-barrel standards.
Huh. Different timing curve for propane. I've been at it for a while. I would assume, yes, you have a much more aggressive timing curve just based on the octane rating.
The engine's NOx sensors allow the timing to advance with high octane fuels. No, the NOx sensor brings it back. The NOx sensor hears, so the computer throws as much ignition lead into it as it can, and then when it gets a ping, it gets a feedback from the NOx sensor, then it starts bringing the timing back. BS Customs. I went to high school on a moped, and the other dude who had a moped was a 125 leg over scooter that he somehow bullshit his way into a moped tag for.
That's genius.
Kathy wants a Super Cub, and I'm like, yeah, that could be pretty cool. So I may be in the market for a Honda Super Cub. Well, I went to the dealer over here, and they didn't have any. They had you got like 17 people ahead of you.
Junior K says on propane you lose 30% power. That can't be right.
Oh, I can believe that.
You think so?
Yes.
How is that possible? If it has more energy.
It has more energy, but it doesn't burn as long. The duration goes right back to what I was talking about.
Honda
Duration of burn. Everything in life comes down to duration of burn. How many degrees of crankshaft rotation is that piston being pushed? And that's it. That's the end of it.
Oh, the Super Cub is ugly. That's this thing? That's this thing?
Yeah.
That thing is fucking ugly. Oh,
The Super
God.
Cub is ugly.
That is the ugliest bike. That looks like an old lady's bicycle from the 40s with a motor on it.
Do you know what the Super Cub is?
No, I have no clue.
See,
I
you wouldn't know, right?
wouldn't. I'm a car guy.
The Super Cub, right, was designed, right, by Soichiro Honda himself. Okay, it was
Is this
designed.
the original motorcycle?
It was designed, not the original motorcycle. It's one
1
of the
billion
most successful,
sold throughout the world, this bike?
100 million of them. It was
Okay.
designed.
Well, then that makes sense because it was probably designed in the 40s, 50s.
In the 50s. It was designed so that you could eat a bowl of noodles while riding it down the road. You had to be able to eat it, hold your bowl
I
of
don't
noodles
doubt this. Yeah.
while you rode it down the road. So that was the design parameter of it. And it's the most selling vehicle in all of history.
Oh, no, I've seen them all over Asia. I just didn't know it was called the Super Cub. That is an
100
ugly
million.
motorcycle, though. It really
No,
is.
it's not. It's beautiful.
I guess it has its timeless classic lines.
Yes. Nobody could ever say bad shit about a Super Cub to me. They are awesome little bikes. What about the trail? The Trail 125? Have you
Look,
seen
man,
that?
if I would have rode that to school when I was in high school,
Yeah.
and this is not today, this is like 1990s, late 80s, early 90s, I would have never got laid if I had one of these things. So that's in my world, that would have been everything at that point, right? So that tells you everything you need to know about a Honda Super Cub.
You meet the nicest people.
Yes, you do.
I absolutely adore those fucking things. Yeah, faster. It's all right. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't have that song if it was that song is about those bikes.
56 Buick needs some power. How do I have to swap? If so, to what? Oh, dude. Well, 56 Buick is a 264, or I think the 322 didn't come out till 57, right?
Oh,
It's one of the small. Joshua Hayes is saying he's got a 56 Buick, needs some power. How do I have to swap? If so, to what?
Yeah, that's the small motor, right?
Yeah, I think that's the 264, or even the 322 would have been the biggest one you could have got. The easiest way to swap one of those would literally be like take the motor and tranny out and put something relatively new in there. That probably is an LS swap.
That's an LS swap waiting to happen, you know?
There's too much going wrong there for you, unfortunately.
Roy Fentro, CT 125 is hard to get. Yeah, I know. I went to the Honda dealer and I was like, okay, Super Cub. And I was like, oh, you got 17 people ahead of you. I was like, what about the CT, the trail? And he's like, oh, yeah, no, forget that. He says, that's not going to happen.
I just remember those Super Cubs being everywhere in like the 70s. Or no, it was even in the 80s. You go to the garage sale and get one of those things for like $50.
No, sure. Not anymore, man. They go for some serious loot.
Well, just like the Trail 70s and Trail 50s. Oh God, when I was a kid, those things were everywhere. They were everywhere at the drag strip. I mean, there must have been 200 of them at every given drag strip every weekend. Man, you could not find one of those today if your life depended on it. Not in good shape. And I don't know why. I had a couple cousins that had them. I had a Trail 50 and a Trail 70. They were riding them through a freaking creek, It's like the 50 had nothing down there protecting it. It was like literally you did a rock, you break the head off, right?
It's so just pointing right at everything that comes his way.
Yep. I'm surprised there wasn't more of them with like overheated and broken heads and jugs on them. God.
I'm gonna keep my own personal fleet to the two Sportsters. I have a 2002 and I have a 61, and I'm gonna keep my own personal stash of motorcycles to those two bikes. But I'm gonna play with everything else that comes through the door. And the guys have got they got some big plans, man. The Junkyard Jet guys are seriously into this motorcycle thing. And if Kathy wants a Super Cub, I'll get her a Super Cub. Fast Tank had 3 Trail 70s at one point.
Yeah, I love the Trail 70. I just never got one. I mean, when I was a kid, my old man would not buy me a Trail 50 or 70.
But
or
you do
nothing.
realize that the Trail and the Cub are the same bike.
No.
Yeah.
The Trail 50 was about this big. It
Oh, the
looked like-
50. I'm talking about the 70s and the 90s.
the 70 was a little bit bigger than the 50, but not. It was not ugly like that thing.
It's the same bike, just configured a little bit differently. It's the same motor. It's the same everything. You know, it's just the that's more for street.
I'm sorry, but the Trail 70, you would have got some poon. That thing, you would have got gay, right? So that's how you would have done it in, I don't know, 70s, 80s. You would have been totally a leper.
Douglas Filer in Asia, the Super Cub moved a family of 4. What more? Yeah.
Dude,
to
you
this day,
should
they
see
still-
some of the crap that I seen in Asia. We went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam in 2008.
Yeah.
They'd have like one of those Super Cubs loaded up with pallets on both sides with like a string tying them all together, and one dude holding them while riding the bike, right? And it's like, how's this guy going down the road like this?
No, I love all those little bikes. You know, I don't care what I look like. You know what I mean? I never gave any concern of what I look like.
There were
on a
some really
motorcycle.
fun bikes, but I never thought of a Super Cub as being fun. Those were not fun. The ones that were fun was like, you know, okay, so the 50s, you know, I love them. The 70s, but you had like 100cc bikes and 125s. There was a lot of 125s at the time that were like 2-stroke, 1-cylinder 125. Oh, they're fast and fun, and they were cheap.
Sid Durlock saying, "I need a scrambler style Harley." Well, the 883R is kind of scrambler like,
Mr. Will, why Vietnam? Well, I pulled into Vietnam in 2008. But I was on this Pacific Partnership mission thing, but it was the first time anybody had been there since the Vietnam War, really. And we pulled in there, and literally there was like 3 cars in the whole freaking country, and the rest of it was just mopeds, like these Super Cubs. And it wasn't even the Super Cubs; it was these Chinese knockoff Super Cubs. It was like the Cooper Sub, right? I mean, it was literally, they were everywhere. They littered everything. There must have been 70,000 bikes. Go watch the Top Gear Vietnam special, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
That is, I love that one.
That is an excellent one.
Jimmy Clarkson Fair.
I don't like it. He's got to ride that bike. It's like born in the USA.
The CR500. Oh. Let's see. Gruesome's Garage. I had a hand-me-down 69 Honda 50 Trail from 7 until 13. Then I moved up to a 74 Honda XL. The XL 250, I had one of those. Those are good bikes. Well, what was it? The 74? The mine had this stupid fucking diameter front wheel on it that I had to search the ends of the earth to get a replacement tire for this thing.
22.5 millimeter.
No, it was like, it's like this. They'll know what it is.
I had a Honda motorcycle for the 70s. I had what was my first bike? First road bike, a CB 500. Is that such a thing?
Yeah.
It was shaft driven. It was a cool little bike, but man, I had no idea how it even. I got it running. I got it from a guy, traded him a car for it.
Well, the CB wouldn't be shaft. Was it a 2-cylinder?
I think so.
Then it was like a Moto Guzzi with
like a post 2-cylinder, like a V twin.
It was a V twin, right?
I think so.
With one cylinder hanging on each side.
Oh no, it was in line like this, but it had a shaft drive, and it was ugly. It had those aluminum mag wheels on it.
Well, that's what I was saying. It says CX 500, but no, he says it didn't have the cylinder sticking out. David Liner, 1978 was the first year of the 23-inch front wheel. That was it, or 24-inch, whatever it was. I couldn't find one. I had one of these right before I left New York, and I loved the bike. It was a fun thing because he used to have beach parties. When I had the coffee house back then, and after we closed the coffee house, a lot of the regulars would go to the beach, and they would start these bonfires and stuff like that, and they'd hang out until the sun came up. And I used to go down there with that Honda. And the tire was fucking just toast on it. And but yeah, I used to ride that on the beach on Staten Island all the time.
Well, I got that thing running and sat for years. and I took it out on the highway, and I took it to town and put plates on it, and I was driving it back, and the whole bike, the motor locked up. It literally had no oil pressure the whole time I was driving it.
Oh, Brad Yelks, a Honda Shadow V-twin 500 is shaft drive. Okay, that's probably what you had. A Shadow. Let's see, the CX 500. I never really got the point of those bikes.
I also had an Indian dirt bike. I don't know if I ever told you that. Yeah. Oh, maybe it was a CX 500.
Craig Cheeto, UT dropped out of school and picked up Ultra Cathy while getting gas, so he didn't care if his bikes attracted hot chicks in high school. I was swarmed. Didn't matter what I rode.
I was not swarmed. I wasn't. I'm not gonna lie. There's nobody swarming me. The last thing I needed was a CB or what is it? Honda Super Cub.
I didn't get expelled. I got tossed. I literally got thrown out. It was a little bit more than expelling. It was like, come back here and you're going to press charges. The CX500 was a V2. Yeah, it's just like a Moto Guzzi. Exactly the same setup with the one cylinder stick.
Oh, it might have been like that. Yeah, it might have been like that. Shit, I only had that bike 2 weeks. I traded a Pontiac Grand Le Mans wagon for it, and I kick myself to this day.
David Leonard says the CX500 engine was manufactured by Maytag. Is that a fact? I didn't know that. If it's true, I don't know if you're busting chops or if it's true.
Oh man.
All right. Well, okay. Hey, we're squeezing up here on the 2-hour mark. This night flew.
Yeah, it went by pretty quick. I think it's because we're ranting about bikes and hot air motors and.
Travis, right? Wait, was Uncle Tony the mean dude in the shop in the movie Christine that picked out on me? I never saw that movie. I don't.
Oh, dude, you'd like that movie.
No, I couldn't sit through it. I was born without suspension of disbelief.
Hey, Zero says, thanks for living, Dallas.
Yeah, well, he means it.
I know.
Can you feel the love coming through the internet?
I do. I feel it. We got the best group. I'm telling you, when I got sick, there was people here buying like T-shirts and decals, and I'm like sick as hell, and I'm having to box these up and freaking mail them off. Like, these people are great. Thanks for supporting me, even though I'm dying.
Let's see. Beatrice, did you ever try circles track? No, never tried any circle track stuff. Never really had any desire to. I never understood it. And Fubar just put the link to our merch. Thank you, Fubar. You guys are awesome.
Dean Stevenson put some kiwis and wine glasses, and then a lightning bolt and something else.
Oh, he means it. All right, so guys, we're gonna wrap it up, and I gotta get up early. I got so much shit I gotta do in the morning. Yeah, and John Wilburn is thanking you for not dying.
Oh,
see, it's important.
Yeah, well, and John and I are trying to work on getting this event together. So we got to get this thing together, and we're going to announce it this coming Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central. Hopefully, we'll have a better name than No Name Race or insert race name here.
Well, anyway, guys, listen. I, as always, our amazing mods keeping everything running smooth. Ari, John, Fubar Zero, thank you guys. Everybody contributed Super Chat. Thank you. We greatly appreciate the income. It keeps the wheels turning. And of course, everybody contributed with good conversation with the best automotive community on YouTube. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
We have the best automotive. We don't have the biggest. We have the best. We have the best automotive community on YouTube. Thank you guys for being a part of it. And that's it. I got to get out of here. I got to get up early and do a lot of stuff tomorrow. So anything you want to say?
No, that's it. I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks for coming back, and cheering me on so I didn't die.
You didn't die. I'm so impressed by that. We both beat the Rona, bro.
I know. I beat it twice now.
We're like Rona bros.
I think I had the real Rona, and then I had the watered down version of the Rona that you get when you get pneumonia. I don't know. But either way, it was rough.
All right. So that's it, guys. I'm hitting the end stream button, and we are out of here. Good night, all.